What's going on, guys? I don't know what's going on with Brody's thing, so I'm just going to get started. How's everybody doing? It's a crazy week 18. As we all know, there's going to be a lot of things. There's a lot of pivotability. There's a lot of games that may not matter in the second half. There's some extra incentives. We got our boy Rody in here, and he's going to help us break this whole thing down with the Aaron Rodgers praying for the playoffs tattoo.
I had to wear my jersey.
I don't know why I said
that. It screws up my green screen. So
it's earlier for me than it is for you. Although I did get up early and took a look at everything on the slate and got a workout in. So I'm ready to go, man.
That's good.
So what are your thoughts here, man? Let's talk a little bit about this because it's high variance week. Obviously, there's a lot of situations that you're going to see concentrated chalk that is questionable in a lot of cases. Not all of them, but certainly in some of them. So I'm just curious. What is your approach to slates like this? What is your approach on this slate? What are you looking at game wise? What are some things you're factoring? Are there certain player props that you think are better to bet on than others? Where are you at with this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at I've been looking at some of those things we talked about last week, guys going for yardage. It worked out for Jamal Williams last week. We talked about him, him getting the yards and stuff. There's certain little things you got to attack. There's certain people games still being played that are on a higher level, like they need to win or that those type of games. So I'm kind of just playing those games really. I'm a little bit worried about some of these other, even like Hurts. They're supposed to win the game, but now Giants are resting their starters. You got Dave Webb starting for QB there against the Giants. I mean, the Eagles should be able to handle that game in the first half, you would think, right? So that could hurt Hurts in the second half of the game. I like, like the Seahawks game this week. I think it's going to be a good game to play. I think the New England side wants to win against Buffalo. So, Buffalo needs a win. So that could be a good game. I know the Cincinnati-Baltimore game might be good as well. So those are kind of just some of the games I'm going to, I think, attack mostly. Mm-hmm. And then wait to hear about some more news here if we get any on some of these other games. But it looks like there's going to be some good plays in some of these other games that maybe you get a cheaper guy. There's a couple of cheap guys we'll talk about when we get to the players. So,
yep. One thing to note, though, and it's just to touch on, Poker X Factor, which I'm guessing is Scott's question. What are the most important games for the playoffs? The answer is there's 8 games that are playoff relevant, I believe, out of the 13. So it's not like we don't have games to pick from. You know what I mean? Even if some team just has a small chance because they need to win and other teams to lose. The Seahawks are still in contention. The Steelers are still in contention. The Dolphins are still in contention. The Lions are still in contention. The Patriots are still in contention. The Packers are still in contention. Then you get into the seeding games where Buffalo needs to win to get that 2 seed in the AFC. Cincinnati will want to win if Buffalo can somehow lose, but the games start at the same time. Baltimore, slight seeding, not a whole lot there, but still same game. And I do think they do want to win, obviously. You've got nothing important in the Tampa Bay Atlanta game. You've got the Jets and Dolphins. You've got the Dolphins with a slim hope. The Jets officially being out of it now, but the Dolphins are still going to play. I mean, not even that slim. They're 36%, so they've got a chance still to get there. Obviously, the Patriots and Buffalo matters. We mentioned Cincy already. New Orleans still has a chance to get in, so their game matters for them against Carolina. A little bit of a rivalry with those two, so Carolina may not just lay down. They also seem to bring their best, in general when we thought the season was over for them. Seattle with playoff hopes, and the Rams in Seattle with a little bit of a rivalry. And the Rams, that's an interesting game to look at. Chargers probably not going to matter much for them. So I think that, you'll see a lot of their B guys, which makes Denver defense and Denver's offense even a little bit more interesting. Philadelphia obviously needs to win to lock up the 1 seed. San Francisco is still trying to get the 2 seed if they can get a loss from Minnesota, but that seems pretty slim. And then also Dallas has to play. Well, they could also get it with Dallas losing to Washington. So most of the games actually have some sort of playoff implications. And that's all we need to really go with. And some of the other games, unfortunately, have guys, and even in some of those games, that we've got just crazy values on. We'll go by position, but there is a lot to look out for today, especially after the early slate is over, of what could happen. I can't get into what if this and this and this and this, because there's like 900 different scenarios.
Yeah.
What if the team ties? What if this team wins and that team loses? What if this, you know what I mean? It's not worth it even to do that.
We lose you, Bobby?
What's that?
Oh, I thought you froze for a second. My bad.
My bad. Yeah, the Chargers are probably going to rest today, is my guess. I don't even think it matters to them all that much, to be honest with you, whether they're in the 5 or not. But yeah, and even still, I don't think they're playing much more. I just don't think they're going to risk it. They haven't been to the playoffs, you know what I mean? And anyway, so let's talk about some of the quarterbacks. You mentioned some of them in the games you're stacking. One guy I'm spreading out more at quarterback. You have such extreme ownership on Hurts, Allen, and Burrow, who are my 3 favorite quarterbacks. Geno would be the guy who I have the most ownership of, because I like him as a pivot off of those other guys at slightly lower ownership. And I really like that game stack with the Rams. I think that's a really interesting, Akers and Higbee being my favorite from the Rams. Then you could play both big receivers for Seattle, or throw in Fant and Kenneth Walker if you're not going to play Geno, or even with Geno, I think is okay. I think Russell Wilson is the other interesting guy. The price on Andy Dalton and the fact that his receivers are so cheap is kind of tempting me. I'm not going to lie. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do, but this may not be a week where you need 40 from your guy. So maybe he gets 20, and maybe that's, just 5 points less than the leaders in Hurts and Allen. You know what I mean? That's very possible. We talked about potential game script, and then Allen even in a tough matchup. So the other weird guy, the get weird play that I'm going to make a little bit of, is Deshaun Watson. He's looked pretty bad. You have Amari Cooper is 80 yards away. He needs 80 yards for his prop, for his boost. I think they tried to get him that, actually. And I think Watson is just in the realm of all these weird guys to consider. If we're going to consider Russell Wilson, why wouldn't we consider a little Deshaun Watson and Brock Purdy? So those are my get weird guys. Who are you using here? Are you sticking with mostly the chalk? I know you like those guys like I do, but how are you getting different quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Geno call. Definitely, Andy Dalton's projecting well, like you said, and some of his receiving options are in that game matters a little bit. So I do like that, but I just haven't really got there yet. I'm going to try to jam it in. I like Joe Burrow stack a little bit this week. I like a Mac Jones stack a little bit this week. And then Geno, of course, a couple of my main stacks here, I think. So, I mean, yeah. And then I don't mind the Russell. You said Russell Wilson too, right? Or no, is that the chat questions? I'm reading the chat questions.
Yeah. Well, Russell Wilson, I did say, but I have him just in that same other tier, like with the Purdy's and the Watsons as they get weird.
Yeah, he's priced up. Like him and Watson, are really trying to look good here at that 5.6 and 5.4 range. So they're projecting about the same, Watson and Wilson. So I wouldn't mind taking a shot at one of those guys or both of them as well. I might get to a lineup like that. I'm going to build some of the $3 lineups too. I always do that 20 max. So I usually get weird with those, play those kind of weird quarterbacks in those ones, because you got to beat so many people, So Watson to Cooper sounds like a good stack. Sutton and Russell, another good stack. With Chargers might be resting some guys too on both sides of the ball today.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like if you look at the matchups, so the Chargers, you're saying that I'm kind of confused by what BBF is saying in the Discord, because like the Chargers, if they win, I mean obviously if they win, they lock up the 5 seed. If the Ravens lose, they're the 5 seed. But you still have Buffalo, KC, and no matter how it shakes out, Buffalo, KC, and Cincinnati are going to be the 1, 2, 3. The 4 is going to be the Jags, and the 6 is going to be a slew of teams that we can decide from, whether the Patriots, Dolphins, Steelers still have a chance. So it's a little bit up in the air. But yeah, I understand the point that they're either way though. They're going to have to. They're going to Yes, I get the point of why the Chargers are. I am going a little bit with what the lines are, and the fact that what do we have right now for the line in that Chargers game? Because I do think this is kind of important. The Chargers line right now is they're -3 with an 18 implied total. I wouldn't take that to mean that they're going to play everybody. That's just not a total you'll ever see next to the Chargers in any matchup, especially not one that has any weather concerns. So just take it for what it's worth. So it doesn't really, matter about how much we unless you want to stack the Chargers anyway. Yeah. So let's talk about the running backs, because there's a lot of speculative things we could take shots on today. My inclination at first is to make sure to play the guys who I know are gonna be out there for important things. Kenneth Walker, Algier. I actually like Kamara a little bit more than I usually do today. I think Najee Harris and Joe Mixon, those are the guys like in big games. And then Cam Akers in not a big game, but I do think they're going to give him all the work. So I like those guys. But then you get into the where do you stand with those guys? And then where do you stand with like the Jonathan Williams and the Gary Brightwell, Matt Breida, if you want to, or Breida or Brightwell? It seems to me like if you're going to just punt the game, why would you even let Breida play? He is your pass catching back on third down, and at least every other possession you have. So wouldn't you want everybody healthy? So I'm just sort of like lost. And then you have Zach Moss and Indy, who everyone's presuming gets all the work, but it could still be some Deion Jackson. It's just a little bit tricky with these other cheapo running backs. What are you doing with the running back position?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky today. I really like Walker. I really like Algier. I mean, I'm jamming these guys a lot. Akers, I got a really nice Geno stack I just made. Najee Harris is in that as well. I really like him. Matt Breida should get a bump up in projection. But you're right. Like, how do we trust that? Maybe they rest him a little bit and they play some of the other guys behind him, as well. So there's a lot of question marks here today. So I think I might just stick with these like Najee, Mixon, Kamara, Cam Akers, Algier, Kenneth Walker. Jonathan Williams is a good value. I think he's going to get a run today. From what I hear, he's getting a lot of work. But as we know, some of these beat writers say like, oh, Zamir White's going to get a lot of work yesterday, and like I think he scored 0.4 fantasy points. But so like you got to really. It's going to be a tough week. I think sticking with these guys, like I said earlier in the show, that we know we're going to get some work. We know we're in games that matter. Is kind of where that's what I'm focusing on today. Or if there's like a prop or a bonus that they're chasing that you want to bet on, like those are the ones I would target today.
Yeah, and just to answer like what BBF is saying in chat, like yeah, just because the team's bad against the run, you still have a split. Like who are we to say that it's going to be Zach Moss's backfield, which all the projections seem to love Zach Moss? I have no reason to think that he gets more work than Deion Jackson here. Like none. So I'm not going to play a split running back for a team that can't move the ball anyway with a 20 total, even in a bat or whatever they have. It is a good matchup against Houston, but how are we supposed to know which one of these guys we even want to play? Like and if you're making that guess, it just feels like this is probably the wrong slate, because we have plenty of guys who actually are in games that matter. And I think that it's fine to mix those guys in, but to act like Deion Jackson or Zach Moss is a lock. I cannot understand that way of thinking. I actually think if you wanted to take a chance on the cheap running backs, the one who's not projecting as well right now, but could end up seeing a lot more run, is Chase Edmonds. Why are they going to play Lat Murray, who's a million years old, in a Week 18 game? Why wouldn't Chase Edmonds get the work there for Denver? And you also might have Chargers sitting some defensive guys potentially for a half or so. So maybe Chase I'm talking myself into this one. Chase Edmonds might be the other get weird running back that I'm going to get a little weird with today. And I do agree with the Najee. I do like Najee for what it's worth on to answer Triple J's thought. All right, we're going to have a very, very chalky Rashid Shaheed. I like him. I like the price. We've got a lot of cheap running backs. A lot of cheap wide receivers. All of the value, we're used to seeing guys in like the 6Ks. We've got, Atwell, London, Cooks, Dortch, Shaheed. I'm leaning more towards Dortch, Shaheed, playing more Higbee from the Rams, but I do have a little bit of Atwell and Jefferson. I do like London, but it always feels tough with Atlanta because they like to run the ball a million times. But I do think that this is a reasonable spot for London, and Tampa Bay is a tough team to run on. Which, like I said, I like some Algier, but I just want to point out that Tampa is still, they're not as bad as they're not as good as they have been in the past, but they still are really a tougher team to run on. So I will take, some of the London ownership instead of Algier. I think that the Jacoby Myers is an interesting play. And I think he's going to get, a little bit of a look, but I like him as a run back in Buffalo. I have a weird Tyquan Thornton love that's my large field. Maybe it's the wrong play because we have so many other guys who are going to get work in the cheap range, but they've been looking to him more and more. He's sort of, blossoming a little bit, playing Jacoby Myers against the really tough D-backs. Buffalo is a lot worse against secondary receivers. I'm mixing in, I have a lot of Gabe Davis in my Buffalo stacks. I like the Cincinnati stuff, so I have Jamar Chase quite a bit. I'm not playing as much Higgins today. Maybe that's a mistake. And then I love the Seattle receivers as medium spend ups. Those are sort of the guys I'm looking at. How are you sort of ranking these cheaper wide receivers, and then who do you like on the high end? Because there's a lot of talk about Justin Jefferson and the receiving stuff. Maybe they do it. Okay, maybe they do go for him for it. I am going to play a little bit of Jefferson, so don't get me wrong, but he's not.
Yeah, I got
way to play him.
Yeah, I got Jefferson in lineup. I was going to ask you about that. Have you heard anything on the Viking stuff? Like, I like him today too. Like, he'd be like a spend up that you could get to, as well. A couple guys you didn't mention, maybe like, Pittman in that one game. I like Chase a lot. I like, even Tyler Boyd in that game. He's cheap. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Isaiah McKenzie's a Buffalo cheap guy that I really like. You can run it back with Diggs. I think at 7.9, he's kind of decent price. I think they're going to play that game. I think that could be a good game. I think today I'm targeting that one a lot, like Jacoby Myers. I do like your Thornton call. I think at 3.3, he's a pretty good play. He's getting a lot more work. He's actually got a higher, he's starting to get a good projection. Like they're putting a good projection in there for him on a lot of these sites because he's getting a lot of work. He's looked good, and he's a young talent there for New England that they can use. Dortch and Marquise Brown in that Arizona game. They're kind of cheap, and someone's going to get the ball. I know it's a tough matchup, but San Fran could rest some guys too. So yeah, some of these guys. Oh, Sutton in the Denver stack could be like Russell Wilson, or think that he's going to get some work too. I like him. Chris Olave. I know you said Rashid Shaheed, but Olave is 6.2 there. He's projecting pretty good too. A little bit less ownership, I think, than Shaheed.
Keep on FanDuel for what it's worth as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's only a 900 price gap between he and Shaheed on FanDuel. It's kind of interesting.
Gotcha.
By the way, they have some talent there in New Orleans. Talk about skill position talent. Shaheed and Olave, I think, are really talented receivers. You put Kamara in there, and it's like feels like that team is a year away from maybe doing some things and getting things together.
Yeah, you think it'd be a good team for sure. Yeah, I like.
Yeah. Other guys we didn't mention. I think Deontay Johnson, the Pittsburgh guys are definitely interesting. In every which way for me today. Deontay Johnson or Pickens, but I like Johnson a little better. And then we didn't talk about the Philly receivers, where I'm playing Hurts, I'm going to play them. They're actually not getting a ton of ownership because of the price. And I think you could play both of them together. I think you play one of them with Goddard, with Hurts, or I think you play just one of them. I'm leaning AJ Brown. I've been on the Devontae Smith whenever Minshew plays thing, and it certainly has paid off well. He's been the bigger producer, but I'm happy to go back to AJ Brown with his man back at quarterback. And don't forget one thing about Jalen Hurts. Unfortunately, this is not a great narrative thing because he's going to be 25% owned, but there is still a chance he wins the MVP. If he goes out there and throws for 4 touchdowns and he goes, what would he be then? 12-1 or 13-1 in the season when he plays. And I love Mahomes. I'm the biggest Mahomes is better than everybody else by a significant margin guy that there is out there. But he's not that team has been good and he's been really good as always, but it's not like he's going out there throwing for 450 yards every week with 5 touchdowns. It's not, they're doing it more, 28-point games instead of 45-point games that they have in the past, where the Eagles, when they've been together, have looked awesome. So there is a small chance you could see, in addition to winning the division, this could be like a Hurts. Maybe if he throws for 300 and they're only up 2 scores in the first half, maybe they let him just go completely nuts and play the second half. But I'm a little nervous about the Hurts thing myself. Also, he is, from what I understand, he's definitely hurt more than people think. All right. I think the Vikings are going to pull some guys. That's the narrative that's going around too. But I think Jefferson might be one of the ones they leave out there a little bit. And it's such a good matchup against Buffalo and Chicago that he might be able to get there for you in short time. The problem is, how do you weigh, I guess this is one quick thing. How do you weigh Jefferson, Rhodey, versus Christian McCaffrey? I know they're just the 2 highest price guys.
Ooh.
They're different positions, obviously, but I'm a little more on the McCaffrey side, but I don't even love that. I just feel a little safer with it. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I have Jefferson in my lineup now, but I could pivot to McCaffrey in the flex spot. I like both those guys really, but I'm a little worried about both of them, to be honest with you. But CMC, was getting less work there for a minute until last game he got a ton, but the game before that he was splitting a little bit. But That's a tough one. If Jefferson starts good in the first and second quarter, I think, and he gets like 100 yards or something in the first half, they might leave him out there. But if he's at like 40 yards, 60 yards, they'll
I think if he's
probably
at 60, they let him get a chance at the record. That's the problem. If he's at like 30 or 40, then maybe they don't. If they're up,
yeah.
what do they have
Maybe
there?
60's doable, right? What's the final number he needs? I thought it was it
I thought it was
194?
140 he needs, or
Is it
120 or
only
140.
140?
It's either 120 or 140. But for him, that's not that crazy. You know what I mean?
No, that's not crazy.
That's basically, and especially against Buffalo. I think that against Chicago. I think that, but at the same time, they need to win that. Like, I mean, they don't need to win that game. They don't have anything to play for really. Also, Cousins sucks outside. If you look at Cousins' numbers, all of the good ones have come indoors. Basically,
Yeah, it's gonna be cold too, right? It's gonna be
cold out there in
miserable.
Chicago. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's something to think about anyway. So let's jump over to tight ends. We can revisit anything, and when I'm sure we'll get some questions and thoughts on that stuff. We can revisit it then. What are you doing at tight end? Because I have my strongest takes are that I absolutely love Tyler Higbee. I'm not going to say there's not some variance with this play. They will look for Tyler Higbee, and when we saw the monster game a couple weeks back. That could really be who he is, especially if Seattle is having any trouble getting a pass rush, because the problem is that he's so much of this year he's had to stay back to block. I'm a Rams fan, so I'm a little more familiar with him. But he's the best receiving option they have by a landslide. He's a legit, I think he really is a good tight end. You get the best tight end matchup in all of football for Tyler Higbee. Sign me up. I'm in. And Baker likes to throw to tight ends and running backs. So I'm in on playing Baker against I'm in on playing Higbee against Seattle here. He's my favorite probably. I do like Mark Andrews a little bit in my Cincinnati stacks as a run back. I have a little bit of interest in Hayden Hurst. I'm lower on Freiermuth than everyone is, and that just is what it is. But Goddard, Hunter Henry, those are the other guys I'm using. The biggest ones I'm underweight on are Hawkinson, Knox, Freiermuth. I'm just not touching those guys right now. What are you getting to here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same thing you're thinking about. I really like the Higbee call. Sorry, yeah, the Higbee call, and I got a little Mark Andrews. I think that game, well, a little bit. I might tone that down a little bit. I do like Fireman just because it's priced at 3.8, and he gets a lot of looks towards his way. He's always getting the ball, and I think that game's a game I like Najee and Cooper and Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson. There's some pieces of the game I want to get to. Hunter Henry's another guy at 3.3 I really like in that New England game, and I don't think and Jonnu's playing again, and Hunter Henry's been getting a lot of work from Mac Jones, so that's a really good option. Even some deep balls. I mean, he missed a couple of them last week, even when I watched that game. So he's a guy at 3.3 I really like, and I'm just kind of condensing it to those guys. Really, I'm grabbing one of those guys. I might throw a Knox in there. I might throw a Fant in there. I might throw Dalton Schultz in there in that game. But I don't know if I even like that one really. I want to like that Dallas game a little bit more, but I'm just.
Do we feel like Dallas is being underrated a little bit today? Because I've sort of
I'm trying to get. I think I might get to a stack of that game. Maybe I do like a small stack or a mini stack of that at least. I feel like they are a little underrated in that game. So yeah, I know another guy, Tyler Conklin's right now pretty decent, 3.6. The Jets, Njoku, another guy in that Pitt game, he's up there a little bit. So maybe I get some of those Pitt Cleveland pieces, one of those tight ends in a stack or something too. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I'm staying with those same guys. So
I'm getting some. You know what, Rod? I'm going to talk myself into a Dallas. I like that stack a little bit. Look, the Washington running back is the cheap, whatever people are going to use. Jahan Dotson, I think with a touchdown. I don't remember what the rookie thing is, but there's some incentive-based thing there. And I like Dotson's talent a lot. And Dallas's corners have been burned since week 7. And I like Terry McLaurin. So I actually think that you could get nobody's playing CeeDee Lamb and Dak in a game that they, theoretically need to win at the same time. You know what I mean? I know that we're all counting on Philadelphia beating the Giants. What if there's a fumbled thing and somebody returned a touchdown? All of a sudden it's 7-0 Giants. Dallas is out there to hammer. You know what I mean? They're trying to win this game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get a Dallas stack too now. They have to win, and they play at the same time, so they're not going to be scoreboard watching that much, right? So that like, and it can go either way. Both games could go down to the fourth quarter, and you got to remember a lot of these backups are coming in the games and stuff too. They're not just going to be like go out there and be like, oh, we're supposed to lose, so like why am I trying? Like some of these guys are fighting for contracts. Some of these guys are fighting for next year. Like hey, they want to look good. Like even Baker, you talk about like Baker's going to be looking to get signed something. Like he's been bounced around a little bit. Like he's not just going to go out there and lose to Seattle because they need to win. Like so these guys are going to be playing, so they're going to be throwing to Higbee or throwing to CeeDee Lamb, trying to win that game. They're not just going to go out there and be like, we're just going to back off a little bit. No, they're going to be playing the games today.
Absolutely agree. So I'm talked myself into that. There's my favorite low-owned stack of the day, and I think you could do it so easily. You could just play Dak. By the way, Schultz should be mentioned in that list too. You can play Dak with and you have a slew of cheap receivers. The problem is there's too many of them between Gallup, Hilton, and Hilton getting work took away Noah Brown, our Noah Brown guy who was killing it for us, or for me anyway. But you play Dak with one or two of those guys, maybe Schultz and Lamb, and you run it back with the running back from Washington and who's the only player that will be owned, and then either Dotson or McLaurin. That seems like something that could pay off if things break your way, and it's a reasonably priced stack as well. So I kind of like. I'm going to talk myself into that play. I think that's a pretty cool call that we can.
Yeah, I like that too, and I'm liking that idea of the 3-2 stacks today, like a little mini game stacks. You're just trying to find that one game that I hope blows up. Like I like the Geno. One of my favorite ones I made was Geno to Lockett, Metcalf with Akers and Higbee run back.
Mm-hmm.
I built a really nice lineup.
That was my first build. I feel sad that you said that. If you look on my early builds, it's right there.
Oh, is it? I want to see. I should look at
it. It's just right in our Discord. It's just kind of funny. I built the Geno stack first.
Okay, and you paid up for CMC. I didn't do that. I went still with some mid-range box. So
yeah,
I think I'm more balanced a little bit. So
nice.
I feel
at least you're more balanced. Because we couldn't have the exact same lineup and have people have DraftKings coming after us when we win $1 million. Come on.
Yeah.
Why did
we're different from that lineup?
Sheets out of nowhere probably has the same lineup too for some reason. Sheets who's on vacation and he somehow ends up me and Rody and Sheets chop it up for the last week. That would be kind of fun actually. And our users could chop it up too because they would have had mine anyway. I like Triple J, like inside info with Triple J. Warning, Mark Andrews is in sweatpants. It doesn't worry me that much because it's 90 minutes before game time. If he's still wearing sweatpants in an hour, we can talk. I'm a little worried if he's wearing sweatpants in an hour. That is, and by the way, Triple J, good question with Pollard. I actually think Pollard is a part of that play too. And I think if you're playing multiple, you can play Zeke too. All of these Dallas guys that we've sort of used in and out, and now we're treating them as if they're going to play like half of a game. Which means like even if let's say Philly wins by 3 touchdowns today. What if it's 10 points at halftime? That's not a game that's over. You know what I mean? I'm going to sell myself much more on this Dallas thing the more I talk. So I got to stop talking. All right, let's talk about defenses. We have a ton of options, a ton of defenses that would have been like 30% owned on any other slate. And yet somehow some of those aren't even the ones who are getting the most love. Obviously, if you can afford it this week, the Niners and Eagles stand out in a massive way as just raw points kind of a deal. The Vikings against Chicago, I think, makes some sense, but I actually don't like that one as much as some of these other ones. I think the Jets against Miami is interesting. By the way, if you're not going to do that, I think getting a little game stack there with look, it's the weird thing where you have the cheap quarterback, but using one of those superstar receivers who could end up being one of the highest scoring players, maybe it pays off. Maybe you just use one of the receivers, but no one's going to play those guys today. I think the Broncos with the speculative Chargers is interesting. I think that New England, Josh Allen is still one of the highest turnover guys in the league. New England scores a defensive touchdown every week, by far the best scoring defense in all of football. So it's very strange to see them at 2,200. Let's just put it that way. Like it's another week I would be like all over this, but there's just a lot of options and people aren't going to play them because they're afraid of playing them against Josh Allen. I don't care. Those guys Josh Allen turns the ball over like crazy, and like I said, the Patriots score defense touchdown seem like every week. But I'm spreading out a little bit more. I'm doing more of Sheets thing, not taking a giant stand at defense. I like all these guys, the cheaper defenses. I think that Indy versus Houston is a mid-range one that I like, and then at the very top, it's the Rams and Eagles, clearly the best. But if you want to save the Jets, the Texans to some extent, the Patriots. I mean, look, what I said about what's his name goes for Joe Burrow too, And everybody keeps saying, oh, Cincinnati's going to put up 50 on them. And I do like Cincinnati's stacks, don't get me wrong, but Baltimore doesn't like give up points. Like since early in the season, in that week, that one weird fourth quarter where Miami put up 28 in the fourth, Baltimore like doesn't play in these high scoring games, and they keep the pace slow enough. So, and also Joe Burrow turns the ball over a ton. So I'm sort of siding with the cheap defenses, but obviously I'm not going to argue if you want to pay all the way up for the 4,100 Niners or the 4K, whatever, the 4,100, whichever
Eagles at 4K.
Eagles and Niners, yeah, at the top.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Jets are one of my favorites probably. I see, like, you got the Broncos at 2.5, Falcons at 2.4, a couple cheap ones going against the Chargers that may sit some guys. Bucks are looking to sit guys, maybe, right? I've always liked the Patriots all year. I have them in my season-long leagues everywhere, and they had just been helping me win the freaking weekly matchups.
Nice.
Scoring a lot of points lately. So it's a tough one. I definitely don't like the Baltimore game. You're right about that defense. They've looked a lot better this year, or this second half of the season, a lot better. And like those games have been a little low scoring. I was going to build a Burrow stack. I probably still will, but I haven't been on that Burrow stack a lot this year because and then now they're playing Baltimore, which slows games down. It's been a slower game down, but they could score 50. You never know. So I really like the Jets the most. But I mean, I'm spreading it out, I mean, I think even got a, Chargers against Russell Wilson at 3,600, So yeah, I'm all over the place, I think, this week. You just don't know which team's going to get a touchdown, which scrub comes in and throws a pick six or fumbles the ball or misses a snap because they're not used to playing, and some other team recovers it and takes it to the end zone, So it's a good week to spread it out, I think.
Yep. And to answer, so by the way, Mark Andrews is out, so act accordingly. I do think that makes both of the minimum tight ends a little bit interesting for Baltimore if you want another run back. But now I'm definitely gonna have trouble with the run back on the Burrow stacks if I might just.
Yeah, but Anthony Brown's gonna start now. I don't even know who this guy is.
Oh, I don't know what to do with that.
Huntley's inactive.
Yeah, Huntley Andrews is inactive. I thought Huntley was active. Oh, Huntley inactive. Oof.
No, it just came out 2 minutes ago. Huntley is inactive. Might just
be a sacrificial game for them.
Anthony Brown will start week 18. Yeah,
this came out. Oh, you're saying at quarterback. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's going to make me a little bit less interested in my Burrow stacks, to be honest.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too now. So.
Yeah, maybe I switch those over to Dallas. I mean, this is pretty ugly.
Gus Edwards in the chat, BBF. I mean, J.K. Dobbins is out too, so you only got.
You got Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake. He's looked good when he had early activity.
Yeah.
They got Hill, though. Edwards, I don't know, man.
But the problem is Edwards is their legit number 2 running back. Would they want to, if they're going to just sacrifice the game, why are they going to throw him out there? Why doesn't it become Justice Hill and Kenyon Drake? That's just always where my head goes. Anyway. But I did want to answer Adam's question because it's something I thought a lot about earlier today was like I mentioned briefly with the Miami, I think the answer is probably just to play one of the Miami receivers. My issue with the Skylar Thompson is this guy didn't even throw the ball much in college. I don't know if he threw for 300 yards in a freaking game. I mean, maybe he did in one game or something, but this guy averaged about 200 yards throwing for his good seasons. Really hard for me to want to be too overweight on him against a tough Jets defense that I think they're actually going to come to play. I don't know. Sweatpants never lie. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I like the Jets defense, man. Yeah, I think they're gonna play. So
yeah, I agree with what Adam said. Well, actually, I'll answer it. I think that Mixon is now a better play, and the stack for Cincinnati is now worse. Would you agree? But the problem is you still could get P. Ryan. But I like the Mixon idea to control the game on the ground. That makes a lot of sense to me more than it did earlier, especially because I'm not sure who's going to be playing on defense for Baltimore anymore if these guys are all sitting out.
Yeah, they could be. Yeah, we don't know which defense guys are sitting. You're right. A lot of these guys could be sitting. That changes up, teams scoring easier too. So, yeah, I think I'm going to get Mixon in there versus a Burrow stock. I think now I think I'm going to switch it up to Mixon in a lineup or two, and then not do the Burrow stack. I still like played a Tyler Boyd, maybe Chase. I got one off, maybe a one off on a couple of those guys versus stacking them up. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a tough one now. I think.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot.
Go
Are we
ahead.
expecting a lot more news? There should be a lot more news,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we will. But there's news that we
Yeah.
don't even know what to like. Okay, so Julio Jones is out. That's not a big thing. I don't expect Tampa Bay to really play anybody. Nothing to play for in Atlanta. So maybe you get a quarter out of those guys if whoever does play. I like Broncos question. How would you stack? I'll answer first, and I'll go to Rody. But how would you guys stack the Broncos, Wilson, Judy, Sutton situation? I think that's your answer. It's just you play him with those two guys or with one of those two. Sutton is cheaper on DraftKings, so you're playing on FanDuel because I know K9 only plays. I mean, he's still cheaper, but I think that it's closer. So I guess Judy, if I had to pick one, Sutton on FanDuel, Sutton on DraftKings, and I think it's fine to play with both if you're going to do it. What are your thoughts on if you were going to stack?
Yeah, I like the double. I like the double stack really on that one, or like Sutton's cheaper on DK, but like you can get Judy too, double stack it or something. I don't think it's going to be super chalky anyway. So
yeah, I think you're right. And guys, keep firing the questions in there. I don't think it's going to be too popular. I think some people will be on it, but it's it's a big enough slate with a lot of things. And I like this question. I want to answer this one from Joe because I actually think that Deshaun Watson is kind of interesting today, and I haven't felt that way in a while. Maybe it's not the right matchup. Maybe it's all that. I think that they try to get Cooper going. I think they're going to try and get Watson going. I'm probably going to get off of this because I'm starting to find some other spots I like better. But I think Watson is totally interesting for GPPs, and I think Cooper's actually going to have some ownership. And I think Watson is right in there with the Brock Purdy's of the world as your cheap guys that you're looking at. Yeah, Tyreek Hill always has look, Tyreek Hill. They have something to play for. They're playing for the playoffs. More importantly, they're going to be going after him, and they're going to be trying to find Tyreek Hill. No one's going to be playing this guy. I think that maybe your pivot off of Jefferson is the Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. Like you have two cheaper receivers that could easily outscore him. Maybe that's the way to go. Just my thought. Any thoughts on the Miami receivers?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just haven't liked that game, and Jets got a couple nice corners. So like, they're gonna play good. So like, but Tyreek Hill can nuke for 40 any day. So underneath dump offs, they want to win the game. I don't mind them. I just don't think I'm building enough lineups to get there today. I'm kind of later on my lineups today, so.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy to think because like we're getting questions about or comments Flacco double stack. I actually don't mind that. Like this is the kind of slate where these are the weird things you go through, right? Flacco has started 3 games this season. He's averaged 50 pass attempts per game. Okay, look, and by the way, they won 2 out of those 3 games that he started, so it wasn't like they were just the whole time just piling back. You have a Miami defense that we've seen can be susceptible at times. And you have cheap receivers. Well, you have Garrett Wilson, who's already a good play, and then you have cheap receivers to go with him, along with Tyler Conklin. I have no problem with on this slate with doing the Flacco thing. I think I prefer the Flacco side of it. Maybe you play Flacco with one of the receivers, probably Wilson. Maybe go double stack with either Moore or Davis. That's fine. But then you could use your other spots. Maybe you play Tyreek Hill and your other, as the run back. And I think that's a really cool way to get different and that no one's going to have. I think that's kind of interesting. Let's see. Question about on FanDuel. They have the Green Bay game? Would I stack that game? Absolutely. I think Green Bay on FanDuel is definitely. I could definitely get behind that. I'm sure that you're on board with the Green Bay Detroit stack. I think that's probably the best game of the slate, right? It's just only on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the jersey on. I'm excited to build some showdown lineups later for that game. I think it's going to be a good game. Yeah, definitely stack that up later. I forgot we should talk about that one. Yeah, get some guys on that game.
Yeah, I would. I think every which way you want to stack it is fine. My natural thing would be Rodgers to probably Watson, then Lazard in that order. I don't mind mixing in other guys, but that's what I would probably do. And then I would run it back with the usuals, but probably for me this week, that would be Swift and St. Brown. And I think it's a really cool game stack, and there's enough value. You can find other pieces if you want to do that. So I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw. There might be some overlay on some FanDuel stuff too, guys. Check it out over there.
Nice.
There's bigger The 555s only at 532 a 700.
You know what they say? Confusing slate leads to overlay. People don't know what to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
on.
and I think people are checking out, man. I think some
Yeah.
people are checking out. These games are. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is ugly and gross." Like you said, it's confusing. So people are like, "Man, I just want to watch some games and just drink today." So there might be some guys playing a little lighter too. So take advantage of that in some of these contests.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, let's keep going here. What else do we have?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stack this Green Bay game in that contest now, though.
Yeah, I'm going over there for sure. No, I'm not saying don't play Jefferson. I'm just saying you have a chalky Jefferson. You have who very possibly only plays half of a game, but also maybe they do out there to get him the record. But you've got CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and a million other expensive wide receivers with huge upside that no one's playing over Jefferson, except for Chase. Chase is the only guy I think gets owned more than Jefferson, maybe Stephon Diggs. But nobody's playing Tyreek Hill. Nobody's playing CeeDee Lamb. I just like that route. Even AJ Brown going to be low owned. I'm in on all that. I'm here for it. I want to get the lower owned guys, so I'm gonna go after that. Miles Sanders, I feel like, is a little trappy. I do have about 8% of them, I'd say. Keep in mind, though, with Hurts back, it is concerning. Will they let Hurts run the ball as much because of the shoulder? But I don't know. Something about the first of all, Miles Sanders chalk almost never wins. But if they're winning by a bunch, also he's out of the game. So then, and I think Hurts, while he's in, gets to take control of the offense like he has all season. I don't know. That's where I am. Gainwell is a little too reachy for me. There's other cheap running backs I can use. I don't think I'm going to get to Gainwell, but I certainly understand your thinking there, where he might end up getting the work instead of the other. Any thoughts on Miles Sanders, Rody?
Yeah, he's popping in the projections a little bit, but man, I just haven't built him. I'm real fixed on the guys that I like: Algier, Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Williams, and then Sanders comes in there, even behind Akers for me, Najee. I might get him into a lineup. He's got 5.9 price tag projecting. He's like 16% owned. I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So it's not worked out for me when I played him. So maybe it's work out for you guys. Being I'm not playing him today, so maybe he'll work out. But I don't know. He might be in a few of them. So, but not many.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the problem with the Gainwell thing, just to throw it out there. I mean, first of all, Boston Scott gets red zone looks too. But the problem with Gainwell is why are we forcing that in when we have other 4K guys who are starting and going to get the bulk of the work? It just feels like everything has to go perfect. And even if they blow them out, this is not like the NBA where it's 30 points at halftime and you take all your starters off the field. And it's also really hard to be up by 30 at halftime, just period. But it's even if they win by, like I said, even if they win by the projected total or whatever, that's still probably a close game in the third quarter a lot of the time. Close enough anyway. So I don't know. I'm not getting to Gainwell, but I think as a really, really sneaky, if you're playing 150, throw him into one or two. I don't mind that, but I can't quite get there personally.
Yeah, I think it's a 150 only type conversation. If you're doing like 15 to 20 lineups, I think you're stretching. So
yeah, we've got Williams, we've got the possibly Brightwell or Breda. You've got Algiers, who's cheap. You've got the both running backs from Indy, Moss being the preferred one by most people. So yeah, I just don't know if they're going to give Gainwell quite enough. See, now they're talking about Keyshawn Vaughn, and that is definitely that's one I could actually get more on board with, because I think it is possible that regardless of what Tampa starts off the game with, that you see maybe one quarter from those guys. The problem is maybe they want to get Rachaad White going a little bit before the play. I don't know. It's just a little tricky to figure out, but I don't mind. I like that theory a little bit better because Tampa legitimately has nothing to play for, whereas, Philly is still playing for the division title, and that's for the NFC, the home field throughout the NFC. We love. I think Brody and I are on the same page, but we're both very high on the Geno Smith thing. We're getting questions about that. The Geno Smith stack and Walker, all the Seattle and Rams fantasy. We're in on that stuff, right?
Yeah, loaded up. So that's what I'm doing a lot of that.
Yeah. Peterman, is that a real question? Peterman for Oh, it is possible they do use him as a thing. Peterman he's another 4,800 guy. He's probably my sixth favorite 4,800 quarterback or whatever they are. They're all so cheap. Over Peterman, I would prefer Flacco. I would prefer Dalton. I would prefer Skylar Thompson. I would prefer Desmond Ridder at 49. So Peterman would be the last quarterback I would play probably from all these guys, even though it is fun to try to pick on Minnesota, but it's not like that offense just doesn't have any weapons either. There's nobody to throw the ball to, but there's tons of 4,800 guys. You don't need that one. All right, we're going to get out of here in just a few minutes, guys. Any more questions before we do? Yeah, I don't know what else to touch on. I think that's pretty much most of it. There's no more injury news that I've got. Let me see. Jacoby Myers active, we expected. So is Deontay Foreman, which we expected. So we can't, basically that doesn't mean nothing new. I mean, so your argument is that Nathan Peterman is just so good that he's going to unlock Chase Claypool, who hasn't had 10 fantasy points in the game this season. And Nathan Peterman is probably one of the worst quarterbacks, backup or otherwise, in the NFL. I can't buy it. Go ahead, Eric. Do it. I'm not going to talk about ridiculous things that I'm not going to touch on. Even if he gets there, how much can he really get there? And why are they going to let him go crazy either? Why are they going to let Claypool stay out there? I just don't see it.
Yeah, I think I played Claypool last week. Got 0 points or something. So they're going to chuck it.
I played him last week too, but at least they had the quarterback I wanted, and that's the reason.
Yeah, right. So I don't know, man. I'm going to stay off that game mostly, except, yeah.
The Minnesota-Chicago thing, I think that Minnesota knows they have a very, very slim chance because it's going to be hard for the Niners to lose to Arizona. So really, Minnesota is likely playing for nothing. I don't know that I don't mind the Dalvin Cook thing, but Alexander Mattison is probably every bit as good a play as Dalvin Cook today. I bet you they end up similar in a similar fantasy point number, but I don't mind Dalvin Cook for tournaments. Yeah, Adam, I hear you, buddy. I know that your Bears get some real guys. How about get some real guys for our guy Justin Fields, and let's see what he can really do next year. You got a lot to look forward to, man. There's still a lot of time left. All right, we're running out on a time here. Anybody else with any questions? Rody, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, man. We've had a pop-in chat today, 35 in here. Don't forget to hit the like button as always, guys. Thanks for the support today. It's been a fun football season. Be back doing it next year again. We'll
do a playoff show or two, Rody. Why not?
What?
We'll do a playoff show or two, maybe.
Oh, no, we'll have lots of more shows, but I mean, this is just week 18, right, for the final season. Yeah, we'll have a lot more showdown shows coming up for sure. I was on there doing a 2-gamer for you guys yesterday. I really like doing those. I had a really nice day yesterday. I didn't make huge profits, but I was right there at the final. Needed a few more. I was on Kirk. I was on some of those plays. So I had some good lineups going last night and profited in everything I had. So I like these little mini shows. So we'll definitely be doing a lot of those shows, but it's been a fun season and we'll have a lot more good showdowns for the playoffs here coming up. So excited for that too.
Well, I appreciate you taking care of that, buddy, and I look forward to doing more with you. Hopefully we have a huge day today, so we've got a huge bankroll going into the
bankroll. Yeah, let's go.
And thanks a lot to everybody in chat. You guys have been awesome. We're adding a bunch of new things, which I'll get into in the next couple of weeks. We were, before baseball season, we've got some new things we're going to add. We've also got some new people and some other stuff to talk about. But it's exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on. And Rody, since there's nothing else, why don't you take us out of here?
All right, my guys, let's get it.
Let's go.
Oh, you